So we're looking over the garden wall at the neighbours, and they've got some pretty little yellow flowers there. But those flowers are so vulnerable. Look how they're growing up, but there's some weeds and thorns growing up near them. And if we're not careful, they're just going to choke the flowers, and they're going to invade their area and take them over and maybe even kill them. Poor little wildflowers. So vulnerable. Okay, we're going to head back inside now, and we'll hand over the camera to Yvonne, who is today's camera crew, and Yvonne will carry on filming. Good morning, CRB Kids Talk, and for the children who are young at heart. I want to talk today about the word vulnerable, not the parable of the sower. Vulnerable. It means you're at risk, you're in danger. As we are now, we've been talking a lot about human beings being vulnerable to the coronavirus. Let's face it, some things are more vulnerable than others. Although fighting is a bad thing, I want you to imagine a fight between these two creatures and tell me who you think would win. Here's the first one. A crocodile against a donkey. You can just shout your answer back at the screen if you want. Okay, I think if it was on land, the donkey could give the crocodile a good kick, but in water, the crocodile would definitely win, and the donkey would be very vulnerable. Next one. A squirrel against a dog. Shout your answer now. Well, you don't see many squirrels chasing dogs around, do you? Unless it's a very cowardly dog. And with its sharp bite, I think the dog would win. Next one coming over. A great white shark against a turtle. Well, I think if it was a battle of cuteness, the turtle would win, but in a real fight, the great white shark is enormous with those big nasty teeth and would certainly win. Here's another one. A sparrow against an eagle. Yep, I don't think the sparrow would stand a chance against that giant eagle with those sharp talons coming down. So what basically happens normally is that the small little thing is normally going to lose against the big strong one, but not always. Try this one. What we've got here is a diplodocus, or diplodocus, you're allowed to say both, against a T-Rex. Now the diplodocus weighs in at 25 tons on average, and the T-Rex weighs in at only 8 tons. Who do you think would win? Yes, it will be the T-Rex, because the diplodocus was just a plant eater, very gentle, and the T-Rex with his big giant claws and his teeth, I'm afraid he would soon kill the diplodocus. So it's not always the big one that wins. Here's a last one. A human being against a coronavirus cell. Well, let's see who's biggest. I'm going to use Yvonne at the moment, and I'm going to quickly measure her. I've got a tape measure. I'm going to measure her diameter, I think, and just come around here. Okay, and there it is. Ooh, to be honest, let's say 50 centimetres. To be honest, it's more like 40 across, but she's got a big thick jacket on, so we'll go with 50. It makes the maths a bit easier. Now then.
It's more like 28.
Okay, the coronavirus cell, there's one, is 120 nanometers. So you're thinking, oh, 120 compared to Yvonne's 50, the cell is bigger. But no, a nanometer is so tiny, there are 1 million of them in 1 millimeter. Now, if you look at the tape measure, you can see that the tiniest little line, maybe borrow a ruler from home, That's 1 millimeter. And there are 1 million nanometers in a millimeter. And this cell, even though it's 120 nanometers, if you do the maths, and I did, it means there are about 8,000 of those cells side by side in a millimeter. I can't even imagine how tiny that is, or how powerful the microscope is to create that picture. And even though Yvonne is so slender as a human being, do the maths, she's 50 centimeters, let's say 500 millimeters, times 8,000 of those. 500 times 8,000, bit of isolation maths. That's right, Yvonne is 4 million times bigger than a nanovirus cell. But in a fight, it seems like she would lose. Now, God was aware of this sort of stuff. He knew that big doesn't always win. There's that wonderful old story of David and Goliath, whereas the skinny little boy, David, with his sling, was able to bring down the giant Goliath. Just because God was on his side, and let's face it, he had a really cool long-range weapon in that sling. So, again, the smallest can beat the biggest. What does this mean for us? I don't believe that God is on the side of the coronavirus cell. That would be kind of strange. But it does make you wonder, if God put us in charge of all the birds and all the fish and all the animals, we're in charge of the planet, why we would be so vulnerable to this tiny, tiny little thing. Okay, we don't want to walk with lions or swim with great white sharks, but a tiny little cell, and we're the one that is so vulnerable. Now, we're not God, so we don't know the answer, but here's an answer that I want to share with you, possibly, so that we can need his protection. We are so vulnerable that we need God to love us and to protect us. And then we can copy that by loving and protecting others, family, friends, strangers, those around us. Because God will give us the protection, we don't know his plan, and if we want his protection though, we need to ask him for it. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us safely to this moment. We don't know what your plan is for us, but we would ask you to protect us in these difficult, dangerous times, because we accept that we are so vulnerable. Amen. Thank you.